still working on the sculpt, and I realized I never did take advantage of that one split right here, that one, and that's really nice because it adds more to the cheek. And then as far as that nose being flattened out, having pushed the nostril back, in order for me to articulate that, I need an edge running down the nose, or two. And in order to prevent that from exploding the geometry count, the poly count everywhere else, I want to take out the polygons on the inside of the eye and on the inside of the mouth. And I'm going to do that off camera. I'll do it off camera to save a little bit of time. Here's a fast way to select the inside of the eye. Select the loop on the outer side and grow your selection a couple of times, and then shrink your selection until just the inside part's selected, and then delete it. Now it's gone. Same thing with the mouth. The whole inner ring. Yeah, that part. So grow it, and then shrink it just until that inside's selected, and then delete it. In fact, that whole part there, because I don't like how, you see, I don't like how when you select it, it strings back like that. That doesn't make for a very good corner of the mouth. If I see if I can prove my point here. So if I grow, and then shrink, 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 shrink. If I shrink to just that little inner part, then I end up with a square corner instead of like a cylindrical kind of corner. So I'm going to grow out one more, and then this will become the corner. And then I'll just build I'll collapse this down to match profile, and then I'll split one more time. I hope that makes sense. So that this corner is a functionally usable corner. Yeah, so here I'm just tweaking and putting these back basically. And notice how this will make a much more usable corner because it has a center line and an even amount top and bottom where we can do sticky lips. Yeah. And then I can split this one more time, and then that's going to be the curvature of the lip. Here I'm just using normal soft selections with the move tool, the standard move tool. Give a little bit more to the jaw, to the jowls. Yeah, and now that we have the eye and mouth opened up, now we have nice splits that we can do just like that. And that is going to make some great fleshy cheek animation, really nice. So I wanted to share with you a way in which I work is to look at the skull at these extreme angles. And that starts to communicate, are you getting it? Are we seeing that cheekbone? Are we seeing that skull, from top side flaring out? It's starting to look human. Still a bit tapered, from throat to mouth, lips, and nose. And I need to work on just pushing that out because it's from living on the profile view just a little too much. And also articulate just the tear duct just a little bit, and the eye socket. I might require yet another edge ring right there just to tweak that a little bit. Other than that, he's coming along very nicely. I'm happy with this. I did a bit of relaxing around the temple, quite a bit of relaxing in this area because that was looking very chunky. Brought the cheek out. Yeah, but it's still a bit pointy across lips and such. And I was using a bit of regular um, tweaking with soft selections. I did a bit of this, right? I did like it with the bigger brush, but I don't like how it's pulling on the open edge of the mouth. So we'll have to just be a little bit more ginger about that. Here I'm going to switch to volume so that I can capture both sides of the lips. This is worth seeing. I selected the polygons on the inside of the nostril and I raised them up. So you can see those have been raised and pushed inward. And then what I'm going to do is split the inside of the nostril one time and then use that to help round out the edge. It's also handy to actually stick a NURB sphere behind the eyelid as a guide. That way you're keeping to the form. And there's other little tweaks that we can do to the eyeball itself to make it more like an eyeball. But in the beginning, a NURB sphere will serve you well. And you want to have, I'm going to throw out a number of 5 edges to articulate the opening and closing of the lid minimum. So I've got 1 at the here, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I might even go to 7, depending on the needs of the project. Here I'm using the Sculpt Geometry tool to help push and pull on the creases around the lip. So if I just undo a couple things I did, you see how I have this crease forming around the lip, and I want to just smooth that out so that the transition is on the lip itself, not this corner. So to fix that, I need something more than just relaxing. So I'm going to go here, go to my Sculpt Geometry tool. I just dragged that to my shelf, and choose Pull. Set the opacity to something low, very low, like 1.0. Use a small brush and set the reference vector to normal. And now it'll just kind of slightly pull on that geometry. Yeah, that really helped clean up the corner. The corner has a much better transition now. And the lips, like just sharpening the lips a little bit, we can come underneath with a fairly close edge loop. But I'm thinking maybe instead of inserting one, no, I probably should insert one. No, let's insert one. Let's insert one right there. It's going to sharpen that corner of the lip again. So now the lips are sharper. That's nice. But the corner is also sharper, so I'll have to go in there. Let's go in there with the relax tool one more time. And I've got the opacity set really, really low. Let's use a small brush and see if we can just butter that corner. That's just too much. Maybe smoothing. Let's try smoothing. Yeah, that was better. I like the smoothing. Yeah, that's better. That should help transition the sharpness of the lips. Let's check it out. Yeah, that's really nice. So I got a bit of sharpness towards center. Let's turn off the reference. Bit of sharpness towards center. Still got that point in it. So let's take some of this and move it up around. better, but could use a little more work. Okay, now I'm going to get the ball into the eye socket because they're looking fairly sunk, so I need a ball as reference. Yeah, so get a nerve sphere and bring it into the scene. Remember, we're 46 units tall, so the ball has to move up to about 40 some units. Rotate it forward, so on the x-axis, rotate it 90. And using the reference to the best of your ability, scale the ball to fit. And I'm sure you could, do some research and determine, for this height of a person, and this is the diameter of their eyeball or something. But I'm just going to eyeball it, following the curve of that drawing. Oops. Okay. That seems right. Okay, and then I'm going to put that on a layer. And save that layer. And I'm going to turn on live surface for the nerve surface. So now I can sculpt the geometry towards that ball. And that's just how far off I was. So here I'm just entering a negative number for the second eye. And I'm going to set both eyes to be live references, if it lets me. Okay, it's not going to let me do this. I was going to try and do 2 because you'll see. Let me delete this one. I was going to try and do 2 eyeballs because it jumps. I'll show you what I mean. So if I get the mesh and turn on the modeling toolkit and just grab any vertex below. Okay, so that, oh wait, make this live. Okay, now go to the mesh and tag a point and move it. See how the point on this side just wants to jump to the surface over here too? So let's turn off symmetry for this process. Just do 1 eyeball, and then I'll have to just cut it in half and flip it over. So one of the newer features of Maya 2015 is that it will live snap with a soft selection. So if I grab with a fairly small soft selection and I grab that, you see how all of that snapped to the ball? A little too much there. And then we can turn, and then we can adjust it further. Even turn off soft selections just turn it off for a moment and get those to come right around the ball of the eye. And if we just hide the surface for a moment, so you notice how much more, just notice how round that is compared to what we had earlier. And then I can bring some of this forward a little bit and make additional tweaks. So this is going to work out very nicely. I really like these new features. Huge. Man, just look how fast that tear duct gets formed with the live modeling on the eyeball. I used to spend hours trying to articulate. I remember spending hours and hours and hours articulating the tear duct on my self-portrait. Okay, so don't grab any points that you don't want to directly snap to the ball. And then when you're ready, turn the live modeling off and go ahead and hide the ball, and then probably want to do a little bit of pushing out on the up here, a little bit more fleshiness up here, maybe a little bit more fleshy underneath. But yeah, this tear duct just came together insanely fast. Go ahead and turn the model around. Make sure we didn't, grab vertices on the back of the head or the back of the neck or somewhere and snap them to the ball. That would be annoying. Okay, man, that's looking good. It's really coming together. Man, look at the difference between the eyeball that I just live snapped and did a little bit of tweaking and the one where I had no reference, no live reference. Yeah, big improvements. I've been spending a considerable amount of time off camera. I think I've been here maybe 20 minutes or so. Spending a lot of time looking at the model at extreme angles. Again, studying the reference, looking at skulls, and just really getting a feel for that eyeball, that socket, the cranium, the brow. I moved things out a little bit further. I did pull them down a little bit further. They were getting a little too tight, a little too much in around the eye. It was making it too complex. And I did a lot of edge sliding because the form is quite good. Turn this on. The form is quite good. I just needed to adjust the spacing. Again, adjust the density. It came out nice. So things are coming along well. We have all the edges that we need to do animation tasks, and we have a few extras for defining contours. So if you wanted to reduce this, you would simply have to identify which edges are really supporting contours, and then which edges are the ones that really do the heavy lifting. So for example, there are several concentric rings around the mouth, around the lips in particular, that could be removed. They could possibly be painted in or normal mapped in. There's one that comes across the bridge of the nose and comes all the way to the ear. You could consider taking that out. There's a few around the eye you could consider taking out, and there's a few that run from the lip to the eye that you could consider taking out. As well as other things like helper edges on the insides of the nose, and maybe even taking the one right off the tip of the nose, depending on the resolution of your character. And you could remove one or two of the face loops, and so on and so forth. So you could go through picking out what you don't need, but the structure is there. The structure is there for animating. The next thing to create will be the ear. We can use the polygons that are already there to extrude an ear out, and then build the spiraling in and use the n-gon that's there ultimately as the whole of the ear. So I think it's good that the ear n-gon that we have here is greater in diameter, is larger than the ear itself. So because we can attach it on the back end. So let's just take a moment and make a little room for that cartilage to attach. So we can either move these to be an attached lower ear or a dangly lower ear. So just how far you move it depends on what kind of ear it is. There's 3 distinct regions of an ear. You can cut it in thirds. There's the upper third, middle third, and a lower third. So if you cut it in thirds, then you know you have it correct. I'm sorry to say that I don't have a super fast way of making the ear, at least not yet. So this one might take a little time. Notice in the reference that the ear is right about level with the eye, just a little bit above the ball, the center of the ball, the eye, and the lobe is about at the bottom side of the nose, give or take some. And ears generally are not symmetrical, but we will model them symmetrically. Okay, and let's start by using an extrusion and give it an offset of 0.1 to start. Take that to about 0.15. Yeah, there we go. And then grow your selection to include that loop, and let's extrude all of this. Oh, and before I actually extrude it, let's make sure I don't have any crashing vertices like right there. Yeah. In fact, before I extrude it, let's just take a moment and kind of match the shape. Not quite there. There's a little bit of cartilage that'll stick up right there. We're going to have a bit of a dangly earlobe on this guy. So we're going to attach and then dangle a little. I have made ears several different times. I've also done the tactic where I start with polygons separately, model it separately, and then attach it. I'm trying to avoid that process because then you have to do a lot of triangles to connect it because it's tough to keep the point count the same. And then another way I've done it is with curves, where I draw the shapes of the spirals within the ear, and then I loft that, and then I convert it to polygons, and I go through that process, and that also has problems when it comes to attaching. So I want to take this right here and basically pull it towards us, rotate it a bit, tweak it as we go, and then just build in the detail with extrusions. And as long as it's not a terribly ugly ear, most people don't care about the ear, unless it's really special to the character, like an elf or something. And I'm just going to take a moment and space these out just a little bit better. That seems pretty good. Next, we'll extrude it with a small offset, much smaller. Let's try 0.05. A little smaller than that, 0.025. There we go, that's better. And then let's switch to, say, the front view And let's do a little bit of local Z. So local Z is highlighted here, so that's we can just click and drag in the view and push that out. Okay, now I remember rotations don't work so well, so let's use tweaking. Let's tweak, and let's use on edge slide constraint so that, and let's do it in perspective, and let's just pull these back by edge. Turn the reference off. And also on the inside here. Let's switch to vertex. Switch to front view. Turn my reference back on. Let's turn the edge slide off. Let's bring this down for the earlobe. Let's continue modeling this so that, let's see here, this goes out. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have pulled those back. This comes out because that's where the ear is going to be. So what I'm thinking is, let's turn the edge slide back on. Really like that edge slide when I'm modeling in perspective after a while, after you get a good sense of the form. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do here is, so let's pull that back, is to open this, is to make this polyloop, the actual perimeter of the outer ear. And then what I'm going to do is split in the middle, make sure edge flow is on, split in the middle, and then tuck those in the surface. So let's turn edge constraint off, tuck these in. Yeah, that's a good idea, but I'm going to lose some form here because I don't have enough edges to support that. So let me undo a couple, and we'll drop one more in there. Drop one more edge on the outside. Yeah, right down the middle should work just fine. Okay. just doing a little bit more work on the inside of the ear. I turned on edge slide constraint and just distributed the edges that were on the inside here, and it made for a nice transition into the ear. And just having a look at it without the wireframe and just turning it around and, you know, getting a feel for contours, and it feels good from the back, the side, from the front. It feels like the right size, proportion, angle, and such. And that outer bit of flesh there on the outside of the ear, I just carefully distributed 3 edges for that. One at the top to help round it off. This one. Yeah, this one. Turn this off. So that's the top, and that helps to round it out. And I just moved that around. And I also went to the right-hand view and just swapped between wireframe and shaded. Just kind of dance between those and try to get these on contours at a reference. Okay, next I want to take the end gun sitting in the middle and extrude it again. And I want to use the settings of about 0.02, and then I can scale it downward, and then let's translate it on the x-axis only, and just tuck it into the surface. And maybe just scale it a little bit more. So the outside of the ear is pretty easy, and insetting it is easy. Now the weird hard part comes in. So now we're going to cut across using the multi-cut tool, and we're going to cut out this end gun, and just hit enter, and then draw another one and hit enter again. And I've mapped my multi-cut tool to the /. I just went over to Pinterest and grabbed a couple ear references just to have something to look at as I'm bouncing back and forth. I highly recommend it. I don't need to follow it exactly or be anatomically correct. I just need an ear that isn't distracting. So I made these initial cuts, and bouncing back and forth between reference, I have some idea on how I want to cut this. So I'm going to cut diagonally as I already started. I'm going to have another one, and then this little spot here will be an extrusion, so we'll just dip that in. And then I'm going to cut with the multi-cut tool acrossways this way, and other diagonals following the same diagonal patterns this way. So let's do the simple diagonals. So that would be pretty much cutting here to here. Just hit enter between each one. There we go, like that. And this can be a triangle up here, or whatever it might be, because by this point your mesh is so different from mine that you're just going to have to draw what you can from these demonstrations and apply it to your own ear. So I'm thinking at first that this is a triangle up here. By this point, your mesh is going to be very different from mine, I imagine. It would be crazy if you actually followed me point by point. Hopefully you're just capturing principles and process and making your own. So your ear is most likely very different from my ear in terms of point count and so on. But I assume that you're following me along in general. So, when I say I'm going to put a triangle here or something, it's really just a decision of figuring out, where I'm going to split it. In fact, I realize that I don't even need a triangle there. I can remove that edge. I'm actually just going to split using the multi-cut tool. I'm just going to come across like that, which makes a 4-point polygon, and I'm just going to cut across like this all the way over to the other side. And I was really just struggling as to, do I connect here, 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 here? I don't know exactly what it should be, so I'm going to go with the 4-point polygon right across there. And I do know that I want to continue down this way and like that. And I also know that I want to come crosswise like that and finish in a triangle. That's a 5-point, right? 5 edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And then I want to come across here and finish a triangle that way. It's a good idea to finish in a triangle on the ear because if you intend to bring this to ZBrush to finish, then it really doesn't like those triangles. Same thing over here. This is going to be a 4-point. As soon as I click there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And go ahead and just bring this right over here and finish on that triangle. Looking pretty good. And then let's continue that process and finish on that triangle. And then this one, I suppose, can just mimic what the others were doing, although it would be interesting to cut in a different direction. Yeah, I don't really know where to go with that one. I could go outside the ear. I could go outside the ear and finish in a triangle over here, although I don't want to interfere. Yeah, I don't want to interfere with that loop. But I'll tell you what, I'll just leave it right where that is. Hit Q. Take these edges out, Control Delete, and let's use that. Let's take this one out as well. There should be a point there. Be careful not to leave those points behind. And then use the multi-cut. So I'm just suggesting that you bring a triangle just on the outside of the ear. Let's see if there's anything, really ugly about that. I really don't think so. I think that's fine to have it right there. And it doesn't interfere. No, it does interfere. I mean, if you wanted to, let me hide the reference here. If you wanted to split, say, this, oh, it's still on. If you wanted to split that one, okay, that's not so bad. I guess you could split that one. I was going to say, because that triangle is blocking that loop. And if you split it with that triangle there, it's going to create a spiral. But you could split its neighbor, because I forgot I had another one there. That's good. Okay, that seems okay. Oh yeah, and then finish this odd n-gon that I just drew here. Like that, there we go. Okay, and if you need additional edges around the outside of the ear, which eventually we do, oh, there's a spiral. See, that's what I talked about. Nope, no wait, nope. I was seeing things. I was seeing the one on the opposite side. No, that's not a spiral. So we could definitely split that. Boom, nice. Really nice. And yeah, we got the edge flow on. And then we could also split on the inside. So that's more than enough geometry to push and pull. And according to the right-hand view, that's the pattern. Oh, that's the pattern that we need. And I might do a little bit of extruding here to push in, and definitely extruding here to tuck the ear hole in. So I'm just going to do a little bit of pushing and pulling. I'm not going to add anything. I'm not going to take anything away. And I promise I'll record if I do. Okay, the ear hole. So the hole for the ear. Pick whichever polygons are, in the relative area, and go ahead and extrude them and tuck them in. And tuck them in at an angle, like go in. Yeah, tuck them in at an angle. And scale them down too. I want to say it's this way. And then extrude again. And let's reset that. And then translate it, or local Z offset it. That's fine. And then translate it. And go ahead and scale that down. And then we don't have to do anything else to it. It's tucked in there. It's on the inside now. And then just drop a supporting edge or two on the inside of the ear here. That's about it. And then go ahead and manipulate and round that stuff out. And of course, I forgot to say, if this is a game character, you probably won't go to all the trouble of making this stuff. You're just going to paint the ear in, or use a normal map, or a combination of both. You might do a little bit of modeling just to get a sense of realism. It all depends on the game, of course. But I think being able to take it all the way is really important. So then you have options. You can do less, but you've definitely done the most. And we could do more too, but I think this is really good for the level of detail that we have right now. Well, I think that just about wraps up the ear, which just about wraps up the head, minus the inside stuff of the head. The eyes, the teeth, the tongue, the inner mouth, and of course hair, but this guy's bald for now. I'm missing a key edge loop for furrowing the brow, and it's actually not that bad to add it even as late as it is right now. So here's how we're going to do it. And what we're looking for is this. So I'll do a little drawing. So we're looking for this U shape runs a little bit like this. And it's going to run on the inside, and it's going to run between face loop and between muzzle loop. So it's going to run this way, and it's going to come across like that. And it's going to finish somewhere behind the ear, or it can finish at the ear or inside the ear. It doesn't really matter as long as it's right here, coming across the cheek and the brow. And that poly loop can be split multiple times, as many as you need. Okay, and then because we're including it later in the stage, we'll have to do a little bit of relaxing and smoothing to get it to flow. Okay, so to do it, to add it, you're going to select all of these polygons. Then you're going to deselect all of that and that. And you're going to deselect all of the back of the head, deselect all of the ear, deselect just above the ear. We're going to basically extrude a mask, if you will, across the face. And the reason to extrude across the top of the head is simply because, well, you know, an extrusion requires a selection somehow. So I want the selection to end somewhere over here. And I could have it end even at this triangle here, which would be very fitting. That would be very nice. And then the extrusion that happens across the skull up here, I can either use it by distributing it, or I can remove it. So here's how it goes. Oh, and I'm one polygon past this 5-edge star, and I'm crossing this 5-edge star. So, doing an extrusion. Oh, and the extrusion also will produce geometry inside the eye, but we can easily remove that. Okay, so what do we get? We get this new poly loop that goes all the way around the head, which is interesting. It's unique, but again, what's really important is this part right here on the brow. So to fix it, I'm going to switch the transform constraint to surface, since I don't have any edges here, and I'm just going to transform on the surface. This is really nice too, because it gives me just a little bit more to control the nose. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to achieve. Oh, let's work on this side. And it gives me a little bit more control separating this pole right here. Nothing wrong with a 5-edge pole, even in a fleshy part like a cheek, as long as there's plenty of support around it, if you will. And don't be shy to bring that in closer, because this is what you're going to use to furrow the brow. Okay. And this edge loop, I think I said before. If I didn't, I'll say it again. I'll say it now. This edge loop comes from Jason Asipa's book, Stop Staring. First, second, or third edition, whichever one you have or can get. Excellent book. And the way he constructs a face is actually quite a bit different than what I'm doing. Now, this probably makes a bit of a line across the cheek. Yeah, you can see that line. So I'll have to spend a little effort relaxing and smoothing. Probably just relaxing it. So let's do the relaxing. Yeah, that's nice. Love that tool. Look at that. That's a time saver. Yeah, and now we've got this excellent loop that we can split, and I think we should at least one time. I think we should split that one time. Since we brought the resolution this far. And it may seem like this is, overkill for video game. But I'll have you know that Jason Osipa is the leader in terms of education of face animation, at least it is in Maya, I think maybe anywhere really, and is a key creator of the Sims 3 facial animation system, LucasArts' most recent facial animation system, both as a consultant and as a designer. So definitely worth the read. Yeah, so the only problem with adding those extra edges in there like that is you really need to relax them. Relax them, because they tend to tighten up the mesh. Leave lines across the mesh. Okay, now the way I do think it's a little much coming up across the top of the skull like that. I really don't need them up there. So I'm thinking. It's okay. I'm thinking that I'll remove that edge, and let's also just soften the normals. Yeah, decent. Cheeks look okay, and I think you understand at this point. When I'm rotating it around like that, that I'm looking at the specular highlight. And I don't even have subdivision surfaces turned on. Here it is with subdivision surfaces. It holds up nicely in sub-Ds. But really, it's the faces is what really matters. Not to mention it's faster to work with. I don't see any problems in the, just regular shading here, or even with subdivision surfaces. That laid down very nicely across the head, and eventually there would be hair or a hat or something on this guy. But in terms of showing off wireframes, it's kind of weird to have that strip of. Anyway, so I think you get the idea. So what I'm going to do is delete this one. I'm sorry. This one writing one down the middle. Just this one. Make sure it's the same on the other. Yeah, it's the same on the other side. And then use my quad draw tool to remove the remainder. And then just check to see if there's any vertices. Okay, I don't see any. See how that removed it nicely? And that left an n-gon right here. Okay. That's, well, in Maya that's okay, but in ZBrush or a game engine that might not be okay. So you should finish that off with a triangle, or find a way to get, like, this triangle to connect. So either way, you're going to end up with a triangle at some point. You're going to have a triangle at some point. So just leave it as it is. And that is good. I just want to double check contours a little bit one more time because of the little things that I have done. And that's a wrap for the face topology. There are other things that you can do that I'm not going to do. You could put the upside down U shape on the chin, and there's other unique things that you could build per unique character. So again, you'll just have to take a good hard look at your character design to make those decisions.